When I heard someone slipping out of the house after midnight, I expected a simple explanation. What I found instead was a secret that would change our family forever. One sleepless night, one quiet confession, and a bond we'd never dared to speak aloud until now. Hey there, story lovers, welcome to Blind Thoughts, where every night is an invitation to escape into something unforgettable. Please subscribe Blind Thoughts and support me. I never imagined that becoming a stepmother would mean learning to read silence as if it were its own language. When I married Dom Hunter 5 years ago, his son Victor was a quiet 12-year-old who preferred the corners of a room to the center of attention. I thought time and kindness would be enough to draw him out. Sometimes it worked. Soft smiles over pizza nights, a shared laugh at an old movie. Other times it felt like I was pressing my palms to a locked door, hoping he'd eventually turn the key from the other side. The October night that changed everything began without warning. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon from the tea I'd brewed hours earlier. Dom was on another double shift at the hospital, and the stillness had settled so deep it almost rang in my ears. I curled on the sofa with a blanket and my phone, scrolling through old photos. Summer trips, birthdays, the day Victor caught his first fish. We looked like a family in those pictures, but lately that warmth had cooled into polite distance. I missed him, though he was only a room away. A sudden creak above me broke the quiet. This house is old, but that sound wasn't the gentle settling of wood. It was deliberate. I set my mug down and climbed the stairs, heart thudding. A pale ribbon of moonlight spilled through the hallway. Victor's bedroom door was slightly open, and a faint breeze slipped through. I pushed the door wider and my breath caught. Victor was half out the window, backpack slung across one shoulder. The night air brushed his hair into his eyes. "Victor," I said, barely more than a whisper but sharp enough to make him freeze. He turned, startled, then swung his leg back inside and shut the window with a quick motion. What's going on?" Kept my voice low but firm. "I just needed to get out for a bit," he mumbled. "Out? At midnight? Walking? That's all." I couldn't sleep. His shoulders were tense, his face pale in the moonlight. "Let's go downstairs," I said. "Please." We stepped onto the back porch where the cold October air wrapped around us. I handed him a sweatshirt and sat across from him at the small wooden table. The silence stretched, waited. Finally he said, "You're gonna tell Dad, right?" "He's already stressed." "I'm worried about you," I said softly. "Talk to me." "No one's angry." It took time, minutes of fidgeting, long breaths, but the truth surfaced in pieces. The second anniversary of his mother's death was days away. He'd been trying to handle it alone, wandering the neighborhood at night to quiet the panic that gripped his chest. He thought he should be over it by now. "No one expects that," I told him. "Grief doesn't have a clock." He stared at the dark yard. "I didn't want to be a problem." "You are never a problem," I said. "You're family. You don't have to do this by yourself." We stayed there until the horizon began to pale. I shared stories I'd never told him, about my own lonely teenage nights after my parents divorced, the fear that no one wanted to hear what I really felt. I promised him we'd talk to his dad together and find a counselor who could help. He nodded, eyes rimmed with exhaustion but softer than they'd been in months. The days that followed weren't simple. At first Victor resisted therapy, but he went after Dom rearranged his schedule to come home early 3 nights a week. The counselor's office smelled of pine and quiet patience. Victor didn't speak much during the first sessions, but he went back. Gradually, small changes emerged. He started leaving his bedroom door open, joined me on grocery runs, lingered at the dinner table instead of disappearing after a few bites. One evening we took our first family walk in months. Leaves crunched underfoot as we circled the block. Dom asked about school projects. Victor answered more than a single word. When we returned, he surprised me by suggesting we make hot chocolate together. It wasn't a grand moment, but it felt like the door between us had finally opened a crack. Weeks passed. The anniversary came and went with quiet remembrance. We lit a candle for his mother and shared stories, Dom's gentle laugh mixing with Victor's hesitant smile. Afterward, Victor picked up his guitar and played a melody so beautiful it stilled the room. I watched him from the kitchen doorway, heart full of both sorrow and gratitude. One crisp evening near Thanksgiving, Victor and I found ourselves alone again on the porch. He glanced at me and said, "Thanks for that night, for not yelling, for just being there." "I'll always be here," I said. "Always." Years later, that night remains a turning point. I learned that parenting, step-parenting especially, isn't about perfect words or flawless plans. It's about being present when the people you love are at their most fragile, about listening when silence hides a storm. When I think of that moonlit porch, I remember the boy who trusted me enough to let me see his pain, and the family we became because we stopped pretending and started to heal.